Hello, testing. Hey, yeah. How you going, champions? Just seeing that we're all good. We're going live. The messy start of a live stream. It's the first one I've done, so I want to see if it's even working before I go repairing anything. Come on, internet, you can do it. Oh, looks like we're live. Wow. This poor little laptop is good for something. Done, so I want to see if it's even working before I go. Alright, looks like we're online. Just share this link. Copy. Paste. Oh, poor little laptop struggling. Alright, and we're good. So, how we going, everybody? So, one or two people that are watching. I can't see on here how many people are watching. I might have to click over to the YouTube link. To watching. Yeah, you gotta start somewhere, eh? So I'm just going live today. This is the first time I've used YouTube for going live. Normally I use Facebook. We built our following on Facebook. YouTube was started off as a little bit of a hobby, I guess, and became more and more involved as I got more into the repair as full-time employment. So I was a bit hesitant to go to YouTube to start with because it can be toxic at times. People just dump and run with their abuse in the comments, and you get some very difficult and weird people on there. But you know, that's life. You get difficult and weird people everywhere, and you just got to deal with it, eh? And if someone's a real cockhead, I'll just delete them. Sweet. So I've got a few to get through today. I've sort of starting on a few warm-ups. So we've got our basic Marshall ValveState VS100. This is the head format. I just did one in a combo format. Exactly the same chassis. Exactly the same circuit. It's just in a combo or a head format. Zach, do I think today's amps are too complicated? Depends what amp you're talking about. So, yeah, some are trying to be everything all at once, and the difficulty with doing that is you have to make certain commitments to the amplifier circuit topology to have optimized it for a particular sound. Really, the only way you can get the best of both worlds is by having independent channels, and then you're talking the complexity of the amp multiplies, or the preamp at least, multiplies with every channel that you've got, and you've got more valves, bigger circuit boards, more heat generated, more current draw, more filtering required, the obvious problem, more controls on the front panels. They're great if you've got like a studio amp that needs to be used for, say, a session musician, but generally if you've got a guitarist that's got his sound and he plays particular styles, instead of having to be a chameleon, he sort of does the one or two sort of things. You're better off just getting a basic amp that covers those bases, and maybe a couple of pedals if you want to wander a bit further away from those sounds. I see a lot of guys that do session work these days, or cover bands, that kind of thing, where you need, you know, you're doing Boulevard of Broken Dreams, so you need the tremolo, and then you need like a metal tone, and then you need a classic blues tone, all bang bang bang, song song song, you know. A lot of those guys are going to modeling, digital modeling, so no amp at all, or possibly a very neutral or even a PA wedge as their fallback on stage if they don't have a full PA, and that suits them perfectly. Working musicians aren't as concerned about having an amp for the rest of their lives as people that play for fun, like hobbyists. They understand that it's a tax write-off, it's a tool. You buy a cordless drill these days, you don't expect it to last 50 years. You try and get as much value out of it as you can, but once it's done, it's done. You get a new one, you got new warranty. So working musicians sort of understand that. There are a few out there that just love this, old basement or whatever, and they can be maintained for a long term. But yeah, so we're way off track already. You've distracted me. So this amp here, let's figure out what's wrong with it. I've got the speaker plugged into the mains current meter, watt meter thing, and I'm just going to feed it some signal. Try not to deafen you again. Power up. Wait for the valve to warm up. Does have a valve, this one. We've got signal. Now, the biggest complaint with this one was the input jack playing up. It's got to be in just the right spot to actually pass signal at all. So that's the biggest one. The controls are pretty scratchy. Not too bad though. Probably clean up okay. Check the overdrive channel. Ooh, there we go. Pretty scratchy there. Pretty scratchy on the volume control and the gain. We'll go to overdrive 2. So yeah, it sounds like it's been sitting dormant for a while. Everything's scratchy, but everything's functioning reasonably okay. It came in with the reverb disconnected, I believe. I've got to look up the job notes on that one. Reverb. I think the reverb might have failed on this one. Yeah, okay, so the initial quote was to replace the reverb tank because the reverb tank had failed. And it had I'll just grab it. So the budget was limited on this one, as it is on most ValveState. Some guys just want them working again and they'll pay $300, they don't care. But this guy wanted to pay like 100. We sort of came to an agreement of about 150, providing that we don't worry about the reverb. So yeah, it's got a broken spring there. So one of them's just fully snapped off on one end. That's I've seen people try and repair them with a guitar string and stuff, but they don't. It's not a long-term solution. It's a hack job that might get you a few months down the road, but when you got a business, a shop front, you'd prefer not to try that stuff because your reputation rides on it. People come back and they waste your time, and you've wasted their time, and blah blah blah. And it's also got some broken wires. That broken wire is pretty easily repairable, but combine that with the broken spring, I might just snip that spring off and we'll just get the thing working again, but it'll sound different and it won't sound great. And I might hard solder them to the little connector. I'll worry about that later. So we know what's wrong with that. And a new tank's like $30, so you generally don't even go down the rabbit hole of fixing them. You just throw them in the bin and get another one. But yeah, even that was outside the budget on this one, so whatever. He doesn't use reverb anyway. So yeah, the main issue is that cutting in and out. So that also has a loose nut on the input jack. That means it's got no mechanical support, so it's relying on the 4 solder connections, which are pretty piss weak in this model. So we've got cracked solder joints. Now you sort of may be able to get in the side there with a soldering iron. It's a bit sketchy and not real good, but I want to inspect the board anyway, because if one solder connection's failed, then chances are others have as well. Also, the last one I had in, literally finished it 20 minutes ago. This cap just like this, was moving around. You can see how easy that is to move. And it had broken the connection, so it was only filtering one of the rails on the power amp, or well, yeah, the power amp. That was basically exhibiting a massive hum at 100 hertz because one of the side of the filtering, 50 hertz, because one of the side of the filtering was not being filtered. So that sounded terrible. Once we fixed that, the same cap, we reused it again because again the budget's limited on these things. It'll probably be fine with that cap for the next 5-10 years. Being an amp that doesn't get very hot, caps tend to last a pretty long time in this particular model anyway. New ones, all bets are off. So let's crack this thing open. So I'll be removing both boards and inspecting both of them because I want it to be a reliable amp. So a mistake I made early on with these things is trying to access the boards by removing the pins, the little support standoffs from this side. That's way more difficult. What you do is remove these little black buttons on the bottom. You do them with a set of pliers carefully so you don't break them, and it comes out much more easily. Remove the connectors. How you going, David from the USA? What time is it over there? It must be almost beer o'clock over there, eh? Or well past it. So, first we've got to remove the knobs, which is always fun on these things because we've got a million of them. You've got the typical ValveState. I don't know what it is with ValveStates in particular. It's like the cheaper knobs. They just they always lose their little caps. It's supposed to look like this. And those little machined aluminium caps just go walkabout because the glue they used was unsuitable basically. So, and where they haven't already gone missing, you'll find that 50% of them are starting to spin free on their little knobby knob. So I like to glue them down with some thick cyanoacrylate, otherwise known as super glue. Got a 11mm socket. Yes, millimeters. Shock horror. A lot of these manufacturers these days, they may be an American manufacturer or whatever, but the pots aren't made in America, or some of them are, the CTS and stuff. But they're using alpha pots, they're using Asian pots, and everything's metric anyway. So you need to have metric and imperial for anything like this. So tube sockets is the way I go. I use these Draper brand, Draper Expert. Oh fuck, I'm not qualified for them. So I get them from a place called Mectronics here. They're like $20 a set, and they're not a great fit on the Sid Chrome handle, but they don't fall off either. The Sid Chrome ones are really nice. I've got a set of them at home. Should probably swap them over. Take these ones home, but these have a few more sizes in the range, whereas the Sid Chrome don't. I try to use Sid Chrome wherever I can for my mechanics work at home. I do work on motorcycles and shit. Well, used to. This bloody shop takes all my time, mate. What'd you say, Zach? It's still September in the States. It's September everywhere, you dickhead. I know the seasons are different, but the months are still the same, yeah? So we're still in lockdown, eh? It's awesome. No, it's about to end apparently. These caps look a little bulgy. I'll check them out. Yeah, so we've been in lockdown since like third week of June. I don't know, it feels like a year ago now. I've still been coming to the shop because I'm here by myself. Don't have any employees. I've got a table set up out the front where people can pick up their stuff contactless through the glass door. And, you know, that seems to be working. We've pulled through. It's not the best time to start business right now, is it? But, hey, if we can make it through this, we can make it through anything, eh? So just think positive. Positive. Oh, I got you, Zach. Yeah, because it's October 1. Oh, I didn't know what you're talking about there for a minute. Sorry, I need another coffee. Yeah, it's October here. I forgot about Oktoberfest because it starts in September. Normally I drink a lot of German beer, but I forgot all about it. 5 or 6 years ago I was at the real Oktoberfest in Munich. My, how times have changed. That was an interesting day, what I remember. So I figure what I'll do with these live streams is I'll just have a rambling live stream like this where I'm doing jobs that aren't too, don't require too much cognitive input. And I'll just go live with you guys and chat back and forth. Someone's removed this before. And then I'll edit the footage. I am recording, aren't I? Yes, thank God for that. I'll edit the footage and make a proper video so people who are looking for information about their amplifiers can find it more efficiently. But I like doing the live streamy thing. It's kind of fun. Been 4 months locked in this bloody box by myself, so you start to lose your mind a little bit if you're not talking to anyone. Now there are 450 volt caps on there, so you want to be a little bit careful where you put your fingers and just double check it. I mean, 22 mic, 450 volt across your finger, it'll give you a bit of a scare, but it's not going to kill you. Let's be honest. There's a lot of sort of, I wouldn't call it fear mongering, but a lot of overly cautious people. They have to be that way because there's people that are complete beginners that are opening their amps and have no idea what they're doing and really shouldn't be doing it. But hey, it's a free world. Well, not really, but it's your amp. You can do what you want with it. But okay, so someone's been in here and touched up some solder joints pretty poorly, I might add. Let's see how good the zoom's feeling today. It gets to a certain point and then goes out of focus. Don't ask me why it lets you zoom beyond its focus range, but anyway. So, does that look like a good repair to you? Right there. Big sort of witch's hat of solder coming off the top. Some burnt flux. The lead's not bent over. It's got all the issues that will just cause it to happen again. So someone thought they fixed it, but you know, at the moment it hasn't failed. But it's like everything, you know, like it's a house built on sand. It's great now, but it's gonna fail. So I'll flick on the soldering iron, which I should have done previous. There's a little bit of heat damage there around the regulators. So we'll be careful around that area not to damage the traces. They should have heat sinks. It's probably a bit too tight to fit any reasonably effective heatsink in there. It's just poor thermal management, and that's pretty common on pretty much every amp. They just ignore heat, and it's pretty rare that any manufacturer gives a shit about heat, and it's the biggest killer of amps, essentially. Filaments real center tap or virtual center tap, in my opinion, what are they on this amp, or which one's better? In my opinion, virtual center tap is better with half watt fusible resistors, 100 ohm, for two reasons. One is the windings of your transformer aren't necessarily balanced. It depends a lot on quality too. So if you've got a cheaper transformer, you're less likely to have a balanced, either side balanced very well. So getting that out of the equation is good. And then you add 200 100 ohm. They don't have to, yeah, it could be 5% tolerance, but make them fusible and half watt. So if you do have a like a high voltage to cathode or high voltage to heater failure of the insulation, it'll blow those resistors instead of trying to dump all that current straight through the heater winding into the ground. So you'll limit your damage. It'll blow like a fuse, and you won't cause any serious damage to your amp or transformer. So that's why you should use them. As for whether this amp is or not, let's have a look. Let's do the old desky desk view. That one. Can you see that all right? Can you hear that all right? Yep, sweet. So let's have a look at the power supply. So, if I can process this mentally while I'm trying to talk to you. Okay, so there's your connectors there. There's your bipolar power supply. So on the other board, you've got, where are we? Okay, so you got your valve over here. Oh, that's right. On this one, it's configured as a cathode follower because they're trying to get that distortion. So you can see the heaters there. So it's balanced in the center because that's your ground, and it's got one fuse, which is kind of weird. 250 milliamp, really? Huh. Black and blue. Oh, blue and brown, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure this is accurate, but yeah, that's according to that, it's balanced. Via oh, that's just, you know, plus minus 3 point whatever. Yeah, anyway. So back to the video. So yeah, the soldering iron's warmed up. I can show you here the jack solder joints, which aren't pretty. This is my focusing face. So there we go. You can wiggle it around. You can see them moving. So not great. You can see there's a little ring around the pin there. That's just air. So someone's come in here and tried to repair that as well before. You can see, and their repaired solder joints just failed again. So let's repair it proper. The wrong size tip on there. Let's put the right size tip on there. Yep, she's flowing. Clean the tip a bit. Now, where were we? See, that fits right over the whole pin. What we'll do is we'll bend them over. Not all the way, because we want to be able to replace this thing if it fails again. Bending them all the way over means when you desolder them, you probably rip the pin off as well, the pad off the circuit board as well, which isn't great. Like ideally, if you're building your own amp, just use a remotely mounted input jack instead of circuit board mounted. I know it's cheap. Not that many DIY guys are going to be fabbing their own circuit board anyway. Only weirdos like me do that. I should have the boffer going for this, but we're only doing one quick joint. One quick joint on a Friday. No one's the wiser. Right, input jack sorted. Now we're going to inspect the rest of the board. I'm going to redo the capacitor connections, and I think reflow the regulators as well, so they look a bit crispy. We could remote mount the regulators, that's another option. But again, budget on this one. Soldering iron's clogged as usual. I'm waiting on new filters for this one. Something funny going on. So this is Pace SX, what is it? SX something. SX 100. It's a Gucci handbag of soldering irons, well maybe not, maybe Metcal or something would be that. But it normally comes with a set of cardboard tubes that absorbs, like disposable, that absorbs the solder so you don't come in contact with it. I ran out of them yesterday, so now I'm back to the glass tube, reusable. So you got to clean it out manually, which is a bit of fun. Messy. So poke that out. Ah, here's the socket, bugger it. Socket driver, I mean. The filter's absolutely clogged. Oh, Tabika, man. Who are you? From Melbourne. How you going, champion? You just entered lockdown too, eh? Or how long have you guys been in lockdown? Got me a little pipe cleaner here, because believe it or not, I'm cleaning a pipe. That'll do. Get a new filter. Yeah. Morning stretch. Oh, there's those tips. I'm looking for them. About 1 million desolderer tips. Sweet. I'll put them back in the box. So let's do a little bit of maintenance to our equipment, yeah? Because there's nothing more entertaining for YouTube. So I might clean that out with some alcohol. This is where the amp gets pushed aside. Grab a wanky. bit of alcohol. Most of that's flux residue. Shiny. And she's like a brand new bought one. Pop a new filter in the end. It shows you a little it's got a little thing showing you where the filter goes up to. It says filter. Remember that band filter? I wonder if they're still going. Take a picture or something. What's the cap brand in this amp? I think they're Samwa. I'll tell you when I flip it over. But yeah, they're shit. Find that some of the Marshalls, they'll use like Nichicon in some spots and Samwa in others. There's a bit of a mix going on. Alright, I think we're good. We'll pop that filter towards the back. Put it all the way forwards. Zoom out. Line her up. Sort of sits in place. Seems to sit in place better with the disposable ones. A little bit tighter in there. Yeah. That's better. You can hear it. Now we'll replace the diaphragm filter, which you have to do every couple of weeks. You just notice it slowly gets less effective. It doesn't look too bad, but when you look close under like a loop, you can see the pores are clogged, even though it's like paper thin. It starts to slow everything down quite a bit. That goes in that side first. That centers it. You don't want it creased, otherwise it won't work. And that goes on the other end of the hose, straight into the unit. If I can get it in the hole. Tee hee hee. We'll clean up our lead. Seems like every time I do a live video I forget to clean the soldering gear first, and it becomes a feature of the video. But hey, that's what live streams are all about, eh? Alright, back to it. So, just clean up the solder. Let's get the buffer going, bugger it. Shouldn't be breathing in this stuff. It's not the lead, it's the flux. Get some fresh solder on there. The old stuff was pretty dry and flaky. Looked like it didn't have any flux in it. When you get solder from like eBay and stuff, just don't, because the flux core in it isn't continuous. You'll get lengths like for several feet where there's just no flux. And you end up with super shitty solder joints, damaged parts, damaged circuit boards. Actually, let's bend the leads over on that bit. I'm not paying attention. Whistly. Try and get a bit of mechanical support on the bottom, offered by the leads. touch up solder. We'll just reheat it and press down on the top of the cap as we do it, so you know the cap's bottomed out against the circuit board. Because that's the main reason they fail. The cap's floating around, and yeah, they use some shitty glue on the top, but it's not adequate. It just lets go. That should be a lot more sturdy. Give it a quick wash with some ISO, get rid of the flux. Is flux corrosive? No, it's not. Well, not if you use the right type. In fact, newer fluxes are actually protective of the joint. They're almost like a conformal coat. I clean it off anyway because it just looks shit, and it's not like it's difficult. Just do it. But yeah, if you're using the wrong flux, like you get people that get started in electronics and they just think flux is flux, so they use like plumber's flux, dip their soldering iron in the shit, and that stuff's super corrosive. Its job is to eat through the oxide of the pipes or whatever that you oxyacetylene welding or whatever together. So its job is to dissolve oxidation, whereas these fluxes, like, nothing should be oxidized, so otherwise throw the component out and buy a new one. So these basically just work to prevent oxygen from getting to the molten lead or molten lead-free solder, whatever you're using. Let's reflow the valve socket as well. A bit light on the solder from the factory there. This is all standard stuff on the VS100 and other ValveStates, similar ValveStates. They've all got the same issues. Just really cheap circuit boards. Not the best implementation of the circuit board. They could have had fatter traces and stuff, but it's not the worst either. I mean, really, you think about the ValveState series and any affordable amp, they did their job. Like, they lasted 10 years before they started playing up, and they got kids into playing. They made school concerts happen. You know, they got old timers into playing instead of sitting there watching TV. Cheap amps definitely have their place. You can't just say cheap is not good. Having the ability to get amplifiers into people's hands with limited budgets is a powerful thing. I think it's admirable. Because there's a lot of people that may not have got started, or even worse, they might have bought a ukulele or something instead. Fuck. Who wants that? So let's clean up the flux on the input jack area, and then we'll move on to the other board. Oh, this is alright so far. There's no cockheads in the chat. It's only a matter of time, but I had some guy that copy pasted messages saying I should be shameful for monetizing the channel. He copy pasted the comment to every one of my videos. It's like, mate, if your time's that important you can't watch an ad, why have you had time to copy paste the comment to all my videos? People are weird, man. So where are we at? Have a close inspection where you get to stare at the top of my bald head. Sort of tilt it back and forwards to try and get a good indication regardless of the light. There's a few cracked solder joints in that switch there because it has no mechanical support other than the solder joints themselves. That one's okay because it's got more legs, sorry, to distribute the load, as well as it's got the 4 outer ones bent over, so that has dealt with the load a bit more easily. Someone's cut out C33. It's got a component lead on one end. Try and get it to a point where you can see it. So it's got, you can see the component leg is poking through there and then not there. You flip board over. There's a cut off component lead there and an empty hole there. So what's C33? Let's have a wee look. C33, so it's somewhere in the input circuitry. Okay. So it's a 47 puffed ground. So that would be to eliminate possible oscillation or RF interference. Well, 47 puff does seem a little bit excessive. Probably put a 10 puff there or something. But it's not oscillating, and there was no complaints about RF interference, and plenty of amps don't have them. So I might leave that out, and if it gives him any issues in the future, it's right at the edge of the board. So we might be able to put it back in for him, but nothing was mentioned there, and generally no news is good news. So that's the problem with amps that have been modified. As soon as you open the amp, do something completely unrelated to the modification, now you're responsible for everything in that amp. So often, if someone brings in a heavily modified amp, I just won't take the job because I don't know if the guy that modified it knows what he's doing. It could be some super secret mod that I'm not part of the brethren to know how good it is because I don't read forums all afternoon. So I just often won't take the repair, or just say I can fix this one issue, but you've got no warranty on the rest of the amp, or no warranty at all. It's up to you. If they go into it knowing that, it's not like I ripped them off. Because I don't want to be made responsible for a poorly implemented mod failing in the future after I've repaired the amp. And the other thing is, this is not me whinging again. A lot of guys will say, because I'm discussing something, and they'll say, "Oh, you're complaining about that. Well, what about this?" It's like, well, I'm not complaining. I'm just talking. It's just the realities of running a business. So, where was I going with that? You'll get people that bring in an amp and then it fails like 18 months, 2 years after you've repaired it, and they bring it back almost expecting that you're going to do a free repair, like, oh, does your work only last 2 years? And they think that's going to hit a nerve and they'll get it free. It doesn't hit a nerve, I'll tell you why. Because the manufacturer that built the amp from scratch only had enough faith in it to make it last for a 12-month warranty. Now, this isn't counting like boutique amps that might have a 5-year lifetime warranty, whatever, like small builders like myself, for example. I mean, you know where my shop is. If you've got something that I built and it's failed, I'll fix it for you, unless you've, dropped it off a truck or something. But I'm talking like a production bit of factory run-of-the-mill $1,000 and below amp or whatever. I'll do like, I don't know, input jack replacement and maybe a new valve, right? Then like the bias circuit fails and takes out the whole output stage like 2 years later, and they think that like somehow that's my fault. So I think some of them just sort of test the waters to see if they can get free shit, and they get a little bit upset when you tell them I can't warranty an amp that wasn't built by me for longer than the manufacturer warranties that thing to start with. And they seem confused. And then they try the thing where they go, oh, but I haven't even turned it on the whole time I had it. It's like, I don't care. If you didn't test an amp when you got it back from me, A, I don't believe you. B, well, that's your problem. How do you know that they haven't used it the whole time, you know? There's not an hour meter on there like there is on a boat. So, you know, you deal with it with discretion when it comes, but it does happen, and it's not fun. So a few little crack joints on the reverb connectors there too for the RCA leads. There are a lot of techs out there that get really grumpy as they get older, like really unapproachable. And I think a lot of them have just dealt with this stuff their whole life and they're just a bit over it, and you sort of can't blame them. Alright, everything else is looking good. You can see there's a few things that have been reflowed in its life. Not great. If you're gonna reflow something, just push the component down as you do it. There's no point reflowing a joint and then having it floating in midair above your circuit board, because it'll just crack again. Just got to be careful when you do it that you properly heated the solder up before you push down, or you rip the pad off the board. Ask me how I know. Diego, yes, I do build amps occasionally, primarily for fun at the moment, although I am working on some designs for some small run production amps. The design thing's not my strong suit. Not like, for example, Lyle from Psionic. But yeah, baby steps. I don't want to just rip off existing designs. They've been played to death. I'm not going for something that's super world changing original either, because there is no such thing anymore in the world of guitar amps. I'm realistic about that, so I just want a reliable medium to high gain amp with minimal bells and whistles, just a workhorse that you can turn on every day and have faith in it and be confident that everything's going to work and it's not going to give you shit, and possibly tailor it to people's tastes. So instead of having a million knobs and switches that you're never going to use, you'll just set them to whatever. See how easily that came off? Bit of glue, and that's supposed to hold those two caps in place. Yeah, right. So tailor it to your taste, because there's no point having a million knobs. Like if you set your presence to 5 and always leave it at 5, well, let's just remove that knob and set the circuit to be at that setting, you know. Gain ranges too, like some guys will like a lead channel that's stupid amounts of gain and they'll never turn it down. You know, maybe gain levels aren't so applicable, but just sort of tailored to each user's tastes, just to simplify the design and get closer to what they're aiming for without an overly complex design. Couple of little caps there, and I think that's bipolar supply. Yep. Little 100 mics just floating above the board as well. I'll put a dab of silicon on all this stuff, and that'll secure it. Silicon's got a tiny bit of give to it, but if you put it in strategic places, you can make the thing a lot more sturdy. So I think we're done on this side of the board. Let's have a look at the output board. I'll just give that a clean while it's out. It's easier. There's not too much schmoo on this one. It's not too bad. The cabinet's a bit messy. I don't know what it is with ValveStates, but they're all full of just decades and decades of dust. But dust I'm cool with, as long as it's not pet fur. I blew out a cabinet the other day, and not the other day, the other hour, and gave me hay fever for like an hour, just because someone had cat fur and animal skin bits in there, and it just triggered me. And you don't want to go around sneezing in public these days, do you? What's my favourite tube type, Zach? One that's not shorted out. Don't really care, mate. Tell you the truth. One that's in a circuit that's properly designed for it. That would be my better answer. As you're going to see later on, there's a lot of circuits that shouldn't exist. I don't know what it is with EL84s, but every manufacturer just insists on throwing the datasheet out the window and just like seeing how far they can push them before they catch fire. I don't know what the deal is. Vox do it, Fender do it, everyone does it. Mesa do it. And then they'll run 6 V6s super politely, like way under plate spec, and you know, others don't, but I don't know what it is about EL84s that attracts so much abuse. Poor little tubes. They're cute. Treat them with respect. I'm going to clean that front panel. Removing the pots makes it heaps easier, just to give it a quick wipe. Just get some water. It's got some water and a tiny bit of detergent on the paper towel. Paper towel. Just want to be pretty gentle with solvents on face panels, because you can remove the writing if you use anything too aggressive. Alrighty then. Just have a look at the bottom of this, which houses the effects and reverb pots as well as the power switch, with probably not enough isolation there. Anyway, it's been alright so far. So everything looks pretty hunky-dory in that one. I'll just give it a quick wipe. Brush, I mean. Now that all looks pretty sweet. Back in she goes. Actually, while I've got them out, I might just give them a quick hit with the cleaner. These ones have little ports in the front panel, front plate, so you can get a little bit of lube in there without getting it everywhere. And just give them a cycle back and forth. Same with the switch. Got the power dimension switch, which seems to drop the output power dramatically and scoop the living fuck out of it. So it's like the bedroom tone switch. Not great for playing live because your guitar tone just disappears in the mix. But it sounds like all the metal albums you grew up listening to, so everyone uses it. It's fine for the bedroom, just don't expect a sound guy to mix you with it. Craw fail, this is a ValveState VS100H, only the best here at Brad's Guitar Garage. Boutique Amp Central. Now, we've got some nice boutique-y stuff coming up. I'm just working up to it, you know. Let's see how many amp repairs we can do today. I'm not really going that quickly talking to you guys. I'm getting distracted. It's all your fault. Get everything lined up there. Grab a couple of nuts. Grab a handful of nuts. Just pop 2 in there for now and get the other board in there. I will do an edited version of this later on. It doesn't go through all this boring stuff of reattaching hardware and blah blah blah. Probably going to get customers turning up and dropping stuff off and picking stuff up through the day too, so editing all that crap out, and then we'll have a video that might actually get some views. So the stuff that we just did to that board, it's pretty much every VS, or you know, ValveState series amp will have the same issues. I think they started using wave soldering. Well, they probably were for some time, but I think before the 90s everything was still sort of hand soldered, and the ValveStates were definitely wave soldered, which is an interesting process. Look it up, it's pretty hypnotic to watch actually. It's like a surfer's wave machine, but a miniature version made out of molten lead. Sounds like fun, yeah? So the board, they place all the components in automatic. Oh, it would have been a Panasert machine back in this day, and then with all the components in, the board passes on a conveyor over that wave of solder, and the solder sticks with flux mixed in, which would be floating on top. The solder sticks to all the exposed metal, and then it passes over and it cools, then it cleans off the flux, and you get what you have here. So that's literally all those big traces there. They're tinned. That's a coating of solder on that. Before that went through the machine, it would have looked like raw copper, and the lead on there helps protect the copper so it doesn't tarnish, because copper is pretty reactive. So this has had a lot of touch up too, and you can tell because I've seen one of these that's never been touched, and oh, the camera's gone out of focus. Good on you, champ. Time for an upgrade. Your days are numbered, buddy. I've seen these boards and they've got no flux residue anywhere when they come from the factory, and this has got flux everywhere. They've touched up stuff. They've touched up all the input jacks, the output jacks. There's one connection there that's not, and that's one of the speaker jacks, and that is the actual, yeah, so the left-hand speaker jack. Yeah, the left-hand speaker jack might have been intermittent on this one. So that would have been another jiggle, yeah. And they've gone through, repaired selectively. I don't know why you wouldn't just reflow all of them, but they haven't done any bending to the leads, so they've just cracked again. Everywhere that they've repaired them, it's just cracked all over again. So I think this was from a rehearsal studio, so it could have been like a in-house repairer or something, or maybe it was batch runner repairs, trying to cut costs. Either way, it's not really worked. Gobbing more solder on a non-mechanical secure joint doesn't help anything. It'll get it out the door, it'll get the bill paid, but it's not going to last. Now, if I was those guys, I mean, they probably got paid. These days, who knows? They're probably still busy, but I don't know. I just want to do things so they last a bit. Call me crazy. You know, the worst thing about doing videos is I can't have music in the background because I get a copyright strike. So if you guys could sing to me, that'd be great. Stress energy tensor. Sounds like a marketing channel for some kind of crystal healing device. Do I prefer PCBs to turrets or eyelets? I don't prefer any above any. What I prefer is well implemented layout and quality construction. So any of those methods you mentioned can have shitty construction, and any of those methods you mentioned can have shitty layout. For manufacture, I would be aiming for PCB, and a well-designed, high-quality PCB can last forever. They use them on the ISS, so the problem comes when people try and save money on circuit boards, and it happens in small bite-size increments. So they'll go, oh, the copper's thinner, that'll save us 30 cents a board, but we're making 5 million of them, so that's a lot of money, so okay, we'll do that. And then they're like, oh, through-hole plating is good, but it'll cost us like another $1 per board, and you know, we're making 1 million of them, so that's $1 million. Like, I could have that as a bonus instead. And bit by bit by bit by bit, you end up with a cheap shit amp, and the guy who implemented it all probably gets a bonus, and all customers get screwed. I think the mailman's here. No, nothing for me. I have to wait for those parts for next week. So I'm using the butt end of the brush here to just gently bend the leads over. That's actually the perfect tool for it, really. It's just one of those hog bristle brushes that you get at any electronics dollar-y-do store. Just bend those leads over a little, and we'll resolder the lot. Yeah, the whole religion, you know, circuit boards, turrets, eyelets, hand-wired, point-to-point. It's just, I've got no time for that argument, because you can make a shit amp using any of those methods, really. Some of the worst amps I've ever seen have been turret construction. Gotta get new tips for this iron too. It's only when you fire off an order that you remember all the stuff you didn't put on that order. I'm good at that. think that Marshall cut corners. I think they got screwed there by the manufacturer. I don't know the full story, but I don't think anyone saw that one coming. I think it was a mistake by someone, or possibly using materials that were out of date, or contamination by accident in the resin used to make the FR4 boards. So we're talking about, someone just asked a question there about the conductive board issue on the Marshall JCM 2000 series. So over time, given heat, the board becomes conductive, and that's really bad news in the output stages because it makes you bias drift. It makes you burn output valves and short output valves and blow HT fuses. And what often happens, musicians being musicians, they'll put a bigger fuse in there, won't they? And then that can damage can short the valve and then destroy your output transformer, destroy all sorts of components in the amp, destroy the power transformer if you put a bigger mains fuse in there, and just basically set the whole thing on fire. So what I think happened there was there seems to be varying severity of the issue, but it always gets worse, it never gets better. So I just did a board replacement in one the other week. It's the old board's up here somewhere. Here it is. And seems to be all these pale green boards. You can see that's sort of a darker green and it's semi-translucent, like you can see the silk screening on the other side through the board. With these you can't, they're opaque. So what it could have been them choosing a cheaper manufacturer, and the cheaper manufacturer was just shit. But literally what happens, and there's 4 articles written about this, the problem starts like a cancer and it seems to migrate throughout the board, and it starts from the hottest places first with the highest potential difference between the pads. But eventually your whole board starts having issues and it works its way to the low voltage circuitry, end up with noise. Like you might have fixed a bias issue by drilling the holes out. There's various people that have had varying levels of success doing that. It's not a gamble I'm willing to take because the stakes are pretty high. If you do it and it stops working, this board's no longer available, what do? You give them a full refund. You still got a customer with the shits that you can't really help. I'd rather just say, sorry, I can't do anything with that model anymore. These used to be available. Marshall recently clamped down on non-official repairers having access to their parts. So unless you're an official repairer for Marshall, and the terms of which aren't really desirable, let's put it that way, you don't have access to parts anymore. That's only a recent thing, like the last couple of months. So I won't be taking any more JCM 2000s of any format for that issue. And I'll be putting a caveat in my repairs saying that if that does experience this symptom, I'm not covering it for warranty. Make it very clear at the outset that that's not being covered. If, for example, your reverb's blown or something, I'll do that, but not addressing the bias issue and not allowing warranty for the bias issue, because basically if they're experiencing heavy usage, it's going to happen eventually. If they're experiencing very occasional usage, just like a hobbyist, it may never happen in its life because it hasn't been hot enough for long enough to trigger it. So it's a usage case scenario thingo. But anyway, Kabuki Man 69, favourite number. Have I worked on Aussie amp makes? Yes, I've got one in the queue right now from a bloke just a couple of k's away, and it's a very nice built, very cool thing by, I think it was built for a pretty famous guitarist too, but one of my customers got his hands on it. I think there's been a lot of trading happening in the music industry with COVID, people thinning the herd with gear, selling it to blues lawyers instead, and just trying to liquidate their assets while they don't know what the future holds. The music industry's been absolutely raped here in Australia. We only care about football matches and drinking beer over here, and everything else takes second seat to that. So the government support is very minimal. They don't take into account how much the entertainment industry brings into the economy, which is a massive amount. And they only care about football. So football games are going ahead with 40, 60, 100,000 people in the stadiums, and pubs aren't allowed to have, well, we're fully closed now, so the pubs are closed. Football games aren't happening here, don't get me wrong, we're in lockdown, but in other states they've still got restrictions on live performance and stuff, but you can have 60,000 people in a stadium. How does that work? And they're all yelling. You can't even sing at a gig or a fucking church or anything, but you can scream for your team in a petri dish of stadium, and they say, yeah, it's outdoors. Sort of. It's not really outdoors when you're in a house that's built of people. Anyway, that's bordering on political. So, Zach, it's not only the DSLs, it's the TSLs as well. It's pretty much anything from the JCM 2000 series. I have heard limited reports of being other series as well, but I haven't seen it myself. I think the DSL 401 JCM 900 one, because that thing just cooks. I think later models had a fan. If not, a lot of techs put fans in them. But I'd be wary. I wouldn't buy anything that's got that pale board. Anything valve based anyway. If it's a solid state design, it's probably not going to get hot enough to cause a big issue. Jeez, I really sound like I know what I'm talking about on this channel, eh? Got you guys fooled. Alright, it looks fresh. It looks like it's factory bought. Well, better. You know what, I'm going to get a support for this. Put a bit of spruce under there. Help out a bit. So next we'll look at the filter caps. We'll clean up those solder joints, which look like they've been touched up before as well, but again they haven't done anything to the leads, they've just melted the solder and added more to it. And then we'll fire it up, give it a quick test, move on to the next one. What time is it? Oh, it's 11 o'clock, bloody hell, it's almost lunchtime. Supposed to get severe storms again today. It's been a ripper start to the storm season. We had a friggin' tornado. We don't get tornadoes in Australia, or you know, we get willy willies. Read into that what you will, but we don't get tornadoes, and we had one out at near Bathurst yesterday, and it destroyed a bit of shit. And yes, they do spin the other way around in Australia, thanks to the Coriolis effect. Alright, so we'll remove the solder from those filter caps. Hope that desoldering gun isn't deafening you. I'm toying with getting a lapel mic just to get the mic a bit closer to my face hole, so there's less background noise from the equipment and blah blah. But there's a few available. I was going to go with, I've got a Shure wireless system here, but that's a bit of an overkill. That's part of the hire rig, because I do hire out PA stuff. But I was looking at the Rode Go. Now Rode are made here in Sydney. They're made in Silverwater, just down the road, like half an hour drive from me. It's amazing that they're still made in Australia, let alone just down the road. And they make amazing shit. I'm trying to get them in the shop because I want to sell Rode stuff. But there's a couple of local shops that I think might have the monopoly on that. Got the dealership rights. I sell not 8kg, Audio Technica at the moment. They got good stuff, good budget oriented stuff too. But Rode just have a few little devices that just no one else thought of, particularly with the sort of vlogging and live streaming market. So wouldn't mind getting a few of them in the shop, even just for my own use, but selling them as well. I think everyone's a bit over the video blog thing now. Like I think podcasting and everything took off at the start of the pandemic. But I don't know, I think everyone's a bit over it now. Oh, well, I know I am. so here I am on video. Never said I was smart. So we'll have a look at the soldered joints throughout. The power resistors look okay. They're on integrated standoffs, so that's kept them pretty sturdy. And everything else looks pretty good. The output devices are sweet. There's one a bit sketched there. That's one of the capacitors, axial capacitor. Just touch that up, just a little bit under wetted from the factory. Alright, I think we're good. Actually, you know what I didn't do? Didn't give those other pots a clean and lube before I put that board back in, and that's a pain in the ass to get to once I put that board in, so I'll just take that board back out. There's only 2 nuts. No comment. Alrighty then. Yes, that cap did look bulged, but looking at it now, I think it was just the light because it's pretty flat. So we'll give them a quick little looby lube. Just get the air compressor out and blow some dust off them. We got all the toys here. Don't play with compressed air. Alrighty. Let's try and hold that there in case we have a bit of overspray. This stuff is Electro Lube EML. That's a cleaner and a lubricant. It's important to use a cleaner and a lubricant, built-in one. If you just use a contact cleaner, they're designed for like connectors and stuff, so it fully evaporates. You don't want that. You want it to leave a lubricator behind of some description, light, sort of a light oil, preferably not silicone based. Because if you do anything around respraying, spray painting like I do at home, I'll take the videos up there one day and show you the home workshop, but silicon's the enemy. It can result in all sorts of issues with tiny little bits of contamination can destroy entire jobs, and it's not recoverable. It soaks into the wood and basically got to throw the thing in the bin. So Silicon-based lubricants are a big no-no around me. Do tube amps really need standby switches? Well, it depends on the circuit. So some of them destroy themselves by having a standby switch. The AD30 by Orange is one of them. Various designs of the AC30 is another one. If you've got your main reservoir cap, so I say reservoir because that's the first filter cap. It's the one that's attached to the, well, when it's turned on, it's attached directly to the plates. But it's usually called a reservoir cap because it's the one before the standby switch. And that cap is usually the biggest and cops the most ripple. And it also presents the biggest inrush current when you turn the thing on. Now, if you've got a valve rectified design, they do not like inrush current. They don't like high amounts of capacitance. You can short rectifier valves. And if you have your standby already flicked on and you turn the power switch on, the rectifier valve naturally has a slow startup because it needs to warm up before it can conduct. So it slowly starts charging that cap, and the cap doesn't present it with a big punch in the face of inrush current. If you have the standby switch between the reservoir cap and the rectifier valve, and you click it on when the rectifier valve's already heated up, so you do what everyone says, let it heat up for 30 seconds to a minute, turn it on, there's a big punch in the face of current to the rectifier valve, and you can arc it and you can destroy it. And several amps have that, so in that case you can avoid that problem by just never using the standby switch, always having it switched on. Now the other side of it is, if you have a solid state rectified amp that has a standby switch and you turn it on all the time, so you don't use the standby switch and you just use the main power switch, well, what happens then is the output valves will sag the B plus down, the main voltage supply down with their current load. Now they can only present a load once they've warmed up. So when you first turn it on and the valves are cold, you've got the full unloaded DC voltage at every node, all the way up the amp, all the way to the preamp valves, because they haven't warmed up yet either and they're not drawing down their current. So if you've got localized filter caps up there that are borderline on the spec, so say you've got 440 volts on the plate loaded and you've got 450 volts or even 350 volts, 250 volts, which is common in the further preamp nodes, fair enough, they'll be running way under spec once the valves are warmed up. But if you fire it straight up and there's no load, you could be giving a 250 volt cap 500 plus volts and you can destroy the filter caps. So yeah, as always, there's no simple answer. A well-designed amp will have the filter caps spec to deal with worst case scenario all the way up. Another piece of advice I see given on forums a lot is, pull the valves out, fire the amp up, test the voltages. No, don't do that, because that same deal, there's no load. And if your caps are borderline spec'd, then you're going to run them all over voltage and destroy them. And you won't know until you've got other issues and you'll be chasing your tail. And yeah. So yeah, no simple answer to anything in this industry, mate, I hate to tell you. Why do you think I'm bald, eh? So reinstall this board. We'll pop those nuts back on the back. Generally, I think the best idea for an amp, instead of a standby switch, is to have a mute switch and then a soft start. So if you've got a valve rectified amp, just rely on the rectifier for the soft start, and then your standby switch, still write standby on it, because otherwise people go, oh, what is it, what does it do, and they'll get curious. If it just shuts off the signal, job done, eh? And just a mute switch. It can be sketchy on some amps like the Black Stars, where they don't shut off the plate supply and they just take the bias in to cut off. Again, you've got the same thing with current draw. At least your preamp nodes will be okay, but it's also the thing that a lot of techs, I see a lot of questions on amp forums going, I can't figure this thing out, this Black Star thing, its bias voltage is like -90, I can't get it to come back up. Well, it's because the thing's in standby and there's a switch even on the input jack. There's a switch. If you unplug the input jack on most Black Stars, not the Artisan series and stuff, but the HT series and whatever, it puts the output valves into cutoff, so it gives them like -90 odd or 70 something volts on the plates, on the control grids. That puts them in a complete cutoff. There's full voltage on the plates. They're still conducting, well, they're not conducting because they're in cutoff, but they've got full voltage on the plates, and it just takes them into cutoff. And people get confused because they're trying to bias the thing with nothing plugged in, and it's giving them crazy readings. All you got to do is plug a dummy jack in, and she goes back to whatever the bias setting is on those amps. Plus they've got a microcontroller controlling the channels, for Christ's sake, but let's not go into that. So we'll pop some hardware on there because I'm pretty confident that's sorted everything. Famous last words. This is the bit where you got to poke your tongue out. They've got a weird square bushing on these things that stops them spinning because they've got a square cutout hole in the chassis, but it makes starting the thread a bit of a bitch. It's real easy to cross thread these things, and they're just shitty pot metal, so they don't mind stripping the thread. They're pretty happy to do that. Thermistors, yeah, or ICLs, inrush current limiters, they can all do that. You find in some amps, particularly PA and some high-end hi-fi stuff, they'll actually have resistors in series with either the primary or the secondary, and they're switched in and out by a relay and a timer. So when you turn it on, naturally the relay is on, and that diverts the current through some surge resistors, usually in the sort of 100 ohm range, like 5 watters or 10 watters or something. And then when everything starts to stabilize, it switches back and gives it just the bypass of the resistor and the full current draw, unrestricted. That's another way of doing it. PTCs, NTCs, I forget which one's which. I'm hopeless with shit like that. You can hear the guys walking around upstairs. Can you hear that over the mic? There's a builder's office upstairs, and he's got his workshop out the back, a little joinery shop out there where he makes kitchens and stuff, wardrobes. It's kind of what I used to do. Just want to be careful with these. Don't cinch them up so hard that they strip. You just sort of want them to just bite. It's not a bloody head gasket. You shouldn't do it there either, but Alright, before we put the knobs on, we'll just test that everything's hunky-dory. Tell you what, I'll give him a bonus. Give him a bonus reverb tank repair. Yeah, this is where it gets fiddly. Still going to be a bit shit, but it'll work. It'll give some kind of reverb, some kind of monster. So on the top we've got the black. Snip that off. Very fine wire. So 24 gauge. Tin the end of the wire. We'll form a little J on there. Grab our tweezers. What's the video quality doing? Is it looking a bit shit or what? Oh, come on, what's wrong with some kind of monster? Oh, I love that snare sound. Tang! This is the fiddly bit. This is the bit where I swear, okay? Just warning you. You want to poke your tongue out? Oh, you asshole. Yeah, see, there you go. See, there's the swearing. This is this is why I don't do this. This is why you say no to repairing reverb tanks. Yeah, what was it? Saint Anger? No, some kind of monster. No, sorry, some kind of monster was the video for the making of Saint Anger. Is that right? I remember going with my mum to buy that album. I was a Metallica tragic. Lost faith for them after that album though. Listened to it for a bit, but oh my god, this is annoying. What you do when you're doing this work, you find yourself holding your breath for some reason, like you're defusing a bomb. And that's got it. I had a dream the other night I defused a bomb. Turns out, if you cut every wire at once, you're pretty much guaranteed it's not going to blow up. According to my dream logic, anyway. I've had some big snips for that job. Come on, you arsehole. No. Try again. Wasn't poking my tongue out far enough. Alright, I think that'll do it. Yeah, he's not a new bassist anymore though. Rob Trujillo. He's I preferred him in Suicidal Tendencies myself, but anyway, each to their own. Oh, Rob, he certainly looks the part, doesn't he? He gets down like with his legs spread apart and he's doing his bass face dance. Alright, well that should do something. It'll echo to some degree. Besides that, let's fire it up and give it a test before I put those locator pins back in. I'll give these a bit of a twist, just keep them neat and tidy. Be cognizant of the direction that they plug in. Don't just jam them in there. Oop, wrong one. So I kind of don't mind, well, some of the Marshall construction where they use these leads, they're not the best leads, but you got brands like Blackstar that use the same connectors and they put like full plate voltage in them and the bias supply on them. No, you don't trust little pissy connectors with 400 volts. They're not designed for it. And you certainly don't trust them with heater voltage or bias voltage, which is critical. Oh, you're drunk, Vera de Wolf. It's quite alright, mate. Don't apologise to me. You do you, man. Or she, or whatever you are. Drunk at 3 AM though? I'm hoping you got Friday off, wherever you are. Alright, let's plug in the reverb, a little tanky tank, and we'll see if she works at the same time. Red's the send, it goes to the in. White goes to the out. Right. Everything good? Everything plugged in? Yeah, nothing shorting out. Ooh, they're almost shorting out. You don't want that. Straight on the tranny. Pop the valve back in. Where did I put it? Hello? Where did I put the friggin' valve? Ah, man. One valve and I've lost it. Ah, there it is. It's hiding behind the solder roll. It's a Marshall branded. Not sure who made the Marshall ones. Give it a speaker. Give it some power. Fire it up, hope for the best. I'll just center everything. Volume, bass, middle, treble. FX mix down because we don't have anything in the loop and that leads to extra hum. Start with the reverb down. Fire it up. No smoke, drawing 20 watts, We're golden. Alright, let's use this signal generator so you don't get smashed with 1 kilohertz. Alright, so the intermittency in the input jack's gone. Crackling's gone. A little bit there, but we'll work that in. It's not like you're sitting there going like this where you're playing, are you? Or maybe some bands do, I don't know. Overdrive 2. Forget that. We built this city. Let's test the reverb. Sort of there. I've got a feeling that they're the other way around on this amp. Let me have a look. Oh, is that someone here? Ah, the builders locked the apprentice out. You can't get in. I think that perhaps these leads are the wrong way around. So we'll just check the impedance, or the DC resistance, which gives you a clue to the impedance. From Alabama. Hey mate, how you going? I go off America by where they do and where they don't eat brisket. So in Alabama you don't eat brisket, do you? It's all chicken and pork and stuff. Alright, so on the white we've got 2.1k. On the red we've got 100k. 100, yeah, it's varying, but I'm not holding it real good either. So generally, we'll have a look at the circuit, see what determines the impedance. Desk view. Reverb. Here we go. So 220k. So red is the receiver on this one, whereas black is the send. So that's why it's sounding weak. So that was the opposite on the last one, and they were the same model amp. So it's interesting. When the reverb tank says in and out, that's the reverb tank being selfish, only talking about itself. So when the reverb tank says in, that's the amp send, and when it says out, that's the amp return. It can get confusing, stuff like that, but alright, we'll check that reverb again now. We've flicked over the leads. That's the valve warming up. So there's much stronger reverb now. So we'll just test for noise. I'm right near the thing, so it's not great, but alright, so that's a clean channel maxed out, but the power dimension's in. Turn that reverb off for a minute. Turn off power dimension. Now we should have the full unbridled 100 watts. Look out. Well, it's 16 ohms, so it's probably more like 50. Yep, she sounds strong. So next we'll power that down. We'll put it on the load. We'll check the actual power output. RMS at 1 kilohertz. Don't worry, you won't hear it. I've got my lead over there. Just tilt the thing down. I've got my cables. The dummy loads are directly behind the screen. I hope it doesn't interfere with the computer. Having 100 watts of sine wave pumped into it. So that's configured for 4 ohm, which this amp can go down to. It says, warning, total load not to be, total load must not be less than 4 ohms. Sorry, I'm looking backwards at it, and you're looking at my stupid head. Fire up the scope. Beep. That's the everything's okay alarm. You're in the Netherlands. That's pretty cool. Oh man, travel. I've been at night when I'm having a beer or something, relaxing. The missus watches like series, and I'm not interested in that shit. So I've been getting on Google Maps and doing like virtual walkthroughs of streets, and it's pretty sad. I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was in Tobermory, Scotland last night. That's what we've come to. Right, so we've got one kilohertz going in a sine wave into a 4 ohm load. So we'll fire that up. I can't show you the screen at the moment, it's a bit tricky, but take my word for it. And wait for the valve to warm up. Right, we've got signal. And we're maxed out, so I've got to bring the level up. Right. Something sounds a bit not happy there. That's the reverb send. Clipping like crazy. It mustn't have a it must be reverb return only. Adjustment, attenuation. So we're putting out 20, just on one side's clipping harder than the other. There's no DC offset. So we're hitting about 20 volts RMS at the onset of clipping. So what's that? What's that when it's at home? So 20 squared divided by 4. So it's putting out 100, bang on 100 watts RMS. So we're done. Move on. Next one. Put the knobs back on and piss off the reverb. I'm not going to put the amp back together and shit yet because it's pretty boring for you guys because it'd be off camera. It's probably already pretty boring for you guys. Alrighty then. I'll put the knobs on, it only takes a sec. I've got to put the pins back in too. Let's do that before I forget. One podcast I've been listening to for years is if you guys are into electronics, you should already know it. You should already be over it, all over it. I mean, get onto the Amp Hour. Dave Jones and Chris Gamble. Those guys are bloody legends. Dave Jones lives just down the road, about I don't know, half-hour drive from my shop, and he's one of the biggest electronics guys on personalities online, and he's the real deal too. He's not just clickbaity bullshit. He's proper smart, not like me. Yeah, the Amp Hour every week generally. They've got a, unless there's a public holiday or something, they'll have a episode. It's well worth a listen. Just mark on there red, just for future reference. for the next guy that plays with it. Oh, someone already has. Red and white. I could have just looked at that. Like I say, never said I was smart. On to the next one. Put those pins in later. Got a lot to do today. Alright, so here we've got a little tutor. And it's got issues too. Again, quick and cheap. What have we got here? 80/20. We've got. Would have been good if I printed the quote because that has the fault description. Knobs and pots removed. Crackling pots. Boost master volume pot replaced. Okay. PCB inspected for damage. No general service included. Yeah, well, the guy wanted to save money. So what we'll do again, we'll fire this thing up. This is annoying actually because it's got these connectors. It's not a jack, so I can't just plug my speakers in, but I've made a little adapter for that. And I probably lost it. Where is it? There it is. So I made a few different adapters. They've all got a 1/4 inch tip sleeve socket on one end. And then they've got all the different stuff that you encounter on different amps. You've got the RCA for a champ type setup, or a bassman, tweed bassman. You've got the 4.75 male spades. You've got the 6.3 female spades. And you just got terminals. Yeah, that covers most bases, and if not, you can make one to suit. So for this one, we've got 4.75ers, spade connectors. So of course we don't want these to short out, or we will be repairing the output stage. So I just chuck them on the bench with a bit of blue tack between them, stick them down so they can't touch. Quick and easy. Plug in the test speaker, give it some power. Just watch the current draw, make sure nothing's going through the roof. Set everything about midway except for the master. Fire it up. A little bit of a pop there. It's only drawing 8 watts. Give it some sine wave. Whoa. Turn that down a bit. That's a nice pot. Big Clive, is that where you came from, Vera de Wolf? Everything's really crackly there. So what we'll do before we take it apart, just so we know what pots need to be replaced, we'll hit it with a bit of lube, power it down first, bit of a pop there again. Check for DC offset on that output. There shouldn't be any, it's an IC amp. So yeah, we'll just try giving those pots a quick clean. Now they're the traditional can style pots. See the metal cans down there, not like the Marshallware, they were plastic bodied. So what you can sometimes get, that's a little stopper there to stop the shaft from turning 360 degrees, sorry. Sometimes you can get a little bit in there, but it's a bit hit and miss. What I like to do is come in from the bottom side where there's a little window where the leads exit. So to do that, I've got a bit of wire, like 18 gauge wire. And stuck it in the end of one of these hoses that comes with the spray can of the contact cleaner and lubricant, and then I hit it with the hot air station, heated it up and bent it, and because the wire's in the middle it stops it from completely closing, almost like a mandrel bend on a pipe. And then once it's cooled, you pull the wire out and you've got a nice little right angle. It's handy for getting into the squeezy bits. So I'll give that a quick squirt. One squirt is enough, any parent will tell you that. One squirt's enough to send you broke for the next 18 years. Alright, we'll see what that does. I won't bother powering it up just yet. We'll give them a bit of a cycle back and forth, work that lubricant in, and just try and move any crap off the wipers. Sometimes it's easy to just go like that. Don't force them. You'll find that a lot of the time they will loosen up a little bit after you've lubed them. One of the pots is spinning free. That's just the knob itself, not the pot. So the splines have worn off that knob. We'll stick a little bit of tape in there when we put it back on, and you don't glue them though. Under no circumstances should you glue a knob to a pot shaft, because the next tech will find you and murder you. Liam Neeson style. I will find you. Right, let's see if that helps. Let's check our leads aren't shorted out again. Give it some signal again. Let's put everything at halfway again. Now we played with all the stuff. Okay, so that's helped a lot. Still pretty bad though. Still slowly getting better. What I might do is just give it a hit with compressed air. Sometimes they can get what we call tin whiskers, which are pretty interesting. Look them up. But I think that pot needs replacing. Presence okay, contour's okay, gain's okay, everything's coming good except for that one. I'll check there's no DC on it as well. Having shorter components leading to stray voltages on a pot can make it real crackly, and can damage the pot too. I've sort of got access down to those, so what I'll do is turn off, I'll just unplug it. Just check for any stray DC with that in the center of its travel. Nothing. 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 So yeah, it's the pot itself. It's not the circuit causing it. So we might take that apart, replace that pot, and go from there. Alrighty, remove the knobs. Thought that one was glued on for a sec. Almost got my hammer out. I think that one is. So for difficult to remove knobs, just grab 2 spoons, just put them either side, just gently lever them off. I found that's the most gentle way of doing it. And pots that are really hard to remove tend to move pretty quickly once you do that. So I'm guessing that's a 10mm socket, looks smaller than the other one, which was 11. Oh, they're a bit tight. Turn the scope off, it's just sitting there whistling away. Remove the plastic nuts. This one's got a reverb tank built in. So it's instead of the last one, which had cables going to a tank that was mounted in the cabinet, this one's got one directly on the circuit board. And it looked to be about the same sort of configuration, same length with the springs. And that's just the wires linking them up there. So that's another way of doing it, somewhat cheaper. Some of the messes have them mounted on the chassis, just the spring body, not the can. The cheaper mess of boogies. They're only $3 instead of 8. So this one only seems to have one fixing pin. So it's relying on the pots for all the structural integrity, which isn't great. But you know, it's a practice amp, so whatever. So we've just got to remove that one pin. And the whole board comes out. We can just angle it up there. And speaker cables are fighting us. But there's a cockroach leg, that's nice. Fucking gross. We should be able to access the whole thing from here. We've only got to get to those pot connections up the front there. And replace that master volume or boost channel volume pot. So let's just bloody go for it, eh? It's got another nut there. We've got 0% drop frames today. Ooh-wee. Internet's feeling saucy today. So there she is. Feels rough too. It could possibly come good after a few cleans, but if you've ever cracked one of these open, there's it's like a windscreen wiper that goes around a track. But then there's also a ring that connects that wiper to the third terminal, the center terminal, sorry. And that ring should be conducting all the time, and often it gets corroded and stops. And yeah, it's strange, like one pot will go and the rest are fine, but it could be different batches, who knows, there could be different shelf life, like maybe this one's from a batch that they ordered 50 bazillion of them, and then they made these earlier on, sitting there doing nothing. Either way, that's 100k audio, so that's logarithmic 100k. We'll just see what we got. Now, I do stock a lot of stuff. Pots is probably the most difficult to stock. You can spend 50 grand on pots and still get 50% of the jobs coming along that you don't have pots for. So that's fun. So they are, what value are they? 250? What are they doing in there? Oh, 25k, sorry. They should be 25, they should be 50, they should be 100. I really should write that on there, eh? So, 10k? Should be 100. It's becoming evident that my pots aren't really that well organised. A100k, here we go. B100k. A100k. Now these shafts look a bit shorter. Not significantly shorter. Break off the tab. Locate a pin. It's about 3 mil shorter. Not sure that's going to work. Got anything else? Nope. Let's fit it and we'll see if the knob stays attached. Come on, you bugger. Grab a knob. Yeah, I think that's going to be alright. Just doesn't go into the knob as far. Fosse! How you going? Guessing that's you, Lockie. Yeah, it's angry it's not on 10. Although I'm pretty sure 10 on this thing would not sound that good. These only go to 10, they don't go to 11. It's when Marshall lost their way. So we'll fit that, we'll check over the solder connections, check the input jack as last time, give everything a clean, put it back together, give it a quick test, and that goes out the door as well. I'll clean up those input jack connectors and the effects, well, not effects loop, headphone, line out, foot switch connectors. So start by desoldering every diagonal one, so the thing doesn't fall out. And do the others. Where'd my brush go? Do the lead bending thing again. That'll stay in there now. Just gently bend them over, try not to snap them. Don't be too aggressive with it. Resolder them. Sort of balancing everything at the moment, not real great. It's easier than taking the board out. That's all them done. Touch that one up a bit. You've got to give a little bit more heat into something that's got a ground plane on it, because the copper absorbs the heat more effectively. Hunky dory. You can see how much shorter that pot is there, but the knob just makes it in. Story of my life. Clean up our flux again. Alright, JCM 800's treating you well. Good to hear, mates. It's a beast. Once we reverse that dodgy post phase inverter master volume, it's really it's pretty close to original too. Yeah, you'll find that, Zach, if you don't use a pot much, it'll get scratchy when you do use it. But yeah, it'll probably come up good after a clean. Just cycling it back and forwards a few times. You get that a lot with hi-fi stuff. People bring it in saying, oh, the balance pot's scratchy. It's like, well, who uses a balance pot, really? I mean, why do they even exist? Unless you've got like different speakers on each side of your hi-fi. But yeah, so the balance pot's scratchy, well, don't use it. Really, the only reason you'd need a balance pot is if something's dramatically wrong in your hi-fi setup anyway. I don't know why they even... And they still keep on installing them, but I don't know, it's weird. It's like those, the hi-fi amps that have the, all the presets. You make your lounge room smell like a, smell? Make your lounge room sound like a... It's the cathedral or something. Like who really uses them? Like, it must be super weird people that use them. I just set it to direct every time. It's weird. Yeah, F5's the stuff to use, man. Is that Deoxit Fader Lube? I've got some cans of that on the way, but fuck man, it's expensive. Jesus. 100 something mil can and it's like 20 bucks. But it's a bit thicker. It's got a more lubricitous consistency, so so it is suited to like long travel faders and stuff. DJ decks that get like abused. Wicked a whack. Just give these jacks a bit of a clean too. Got a little pipey cleanery thingy. Oh, just a bit of alcohol on there. Oops. Just clean that switch a bit, the button. Look a bit cleaner from the front. And we'll reinstall the board. All the way in there. No, something's holding it back. Just check that that nut's going to bite on that pot. Otherwise we might have to go back to trying to clean the original. No, doesn't grab. No. With this design where it's got the metal plate on the circuit board, most of the ValveStates and stuff that had that set up, they only put a nut on every fourth pot anyway, because they're already secured to a metal plate on the inside. Yeah, balance pots on mixers are important, but that's not called a balance pot, that's a pan. Balance if it's a stereo channel. Oh, this amp's sticky. Bourbon and Coke on it. Oh, it's 12:15 already. Friggin' hell. It's lunchtime. What have I done all day? Talking shit on YouTube. Alrighty, I think that'll do it. Alrighty, let's get the dust out of there, the old cockroach carcass. Locate a pin back in. Give it another quick test. Right, power, signal, signal, power. Turn the level down so we don't deafen ourselves. Power. Turn off the boost. Pretty scratchy. Give it a bit more. Gone completely. often find it goes away while the lube's liquid, but when it evaporates it comes back again. Can's running out. Oh, that's come good now. Just give a bit to that gain knob. It's cleaned up good. You've got to watch yourselves on these Marshalls. They have capacitors that look exactly like resistors. They're just green or pink instead of like beige. So that confuses a lot of beginners. They are caps. They think they've got an open circuit resistor when it's just a capacitor. So that new one's a little bit scratchy, but I've shown this before. So that pot body's grounded. The shaft is connected to the chassis just via the axial, fitting to it, and it's separated by a layer of grease. Now it's intermittently touching my body to the chassis. If I use a rag and turn that same knob, no crackling. So once that knob's installed, that little crackling will go away. A little bit crackly down the bottom end, but you're not getting signal there anyway. Give it a bit more of a lube. So you can hear the reverb tanks receiving at least. Let's play a bit of guitar through it. Save definitely new guys with 1 kilohertz because I know how much you love that. How do you think I feel? I'm in the same room as it. Scoop. Always hated those contour controls. I think we're happy on that one. Do we want to do an output test? I don't really, but we will anyway. Why not? That's interesting. Power switch wasn't retracting. I think maybe we just jammed it in there on reassembly, but I'll double check that. So what have we got? 4 ohms. What's this thing run on? 8 ohms. So let's disconnect one of those jumpers. I've got two 8 ohm loads in parallel, so you just remove the second load. Now we're back on 8. Fire up the scope again and plug her in. It's an IC output stage on this. It's a TDA 20 something or other. What have we got here? What is it? So it's an LM series 1875H. So yeah, that's all the secret shits in there. And bang, speaker. Simple. So let's just put some 1 kilohertz back into the clean channel. Fire it up. Check it out on the scope. it's maxing out at 9 volts. And it's clipping at 11. So if I was Rain Man, I'd already know that, but it's putting out 15 watts. It says 20, but you know, a lot of things say 20. Alright, so that one, I'll just put the knobs back on there and off she goes. The front panel a quick clean first. Doing the output test is not so much to go, whoa, look at this amp, it's just to check that there's no oscillations, there's no power supply excess ripple, there's no falling over of the output stage when it's put under demand. It's just a quick test that confirms a lot of things in one quick go. That's why I try to do it where I can to pretty much every amp. Where should we put the capless knob? Reverb? Yeah. Oh, that was the strip one. Alright, we'll put a little bit of, I've got masking tape here. 6mm masking tape. I just like to rip off a tiny bit of that. I've seen manufacturers do this from the factory as well. I'm looking at UAsh down. You just put a little bit over the end. Literally like 10mm, half an inch or something over the end. You put your strip knob back on there, line up the pointer. And that's usually all it takes just to make it grab again and not spin. I mean, if you really force it, it's going to go, but you know, you got to think about the amp and the budget and blah blah. Put another knob on there, put another $2 on the invoice, and you'll probably hit the roof. I don't like giving away free things. It's not how you have a successful business. Anyway, so that one is going out the door. So next, what do you feel like next? Something valve? I'll leave it up to you. Valve, solid state. Valve, solid state. While you're deciding, I'll go and pee. Alright, I'm back. So, I washed my hands, Alan. Of course I washed my hands in the age of COVID. So let's go valve then. You've decided. The mob has spoken. Zach, yes, they did make some ValveStates without valves. Just like they make states without being united. Right, so what do we want? Do we want cheapo production or we want boutique? That's your next choice. So we want a cheapo production amp, ubiquitous common problems that I'll make a very nicely edited video out of the remnants of this live stream. Or do we want a fancy thing that we don't see very often? Fancy. I think I know what the answer's going to be. Yeah, boutique, of course. Right, I'll just get rid of some shit. Clear a space, give boutique amp what it deserves. So you're about to find out. Kabuki man. Kabuki man. I'll get the box first. So, we have a Reynolds Valver. Now, who was mentioning Australian made amps a minute ago? This one is made just down the road in Windsor, or was. I don't think he builds them anymore, or he does them for fun. But yeah, Aussie builder. Looks like a grandfather clock a bit, doesn't it? And this is a big 100-watt head. This was his flagship sort of setup. I'm not sure how many he made, but we'll have a look at the serial number. It's got a pretty well made cabinet. It's made out of ply. You can see it's BC grade ply, so it's the stuff they use for, you know, wall lining and you know, just construction work. But it's handmade. It's even got like machined bits here, which is plain flats on to reinforce the angle. Because yes, this, from a joiner's point of view, making stuff at this angle is difficult to make strong. I use, because I am a cabinet maker in my past life, I use Festool dominoes, which are like little dominoes. And they have an adjustable fence you can set anywhere from 45 degrees to 90. And he's putting reinforcement blocks in the end there, and they also house the back panel, which is here. So this is a little bit rough on the construction, you know, like, but it's got character. The router's dug in a little bit on the face, but it's inconsistent thickness ply. That's expected. But you know, it looks the part, and he's used this stutter. He's used why am I finding that hard to say? He's used security screening for the grill, which is perforated. It feels like aluminium. Yeah, perforated aluminium, probably 1.6 mil thick, with like 3 mil holes in it, 2.5 mil holes, 3 mil holes. And he's stapled it, and he's used heavy grade staples, and they happen to line up perfectly with the holes. And overall, build quality is pretty good. Stainless hardware, stainless cut washers, no rusty bits. So we'll piss off the cabinet. I like his badge. Looks like it was made by a proper signage company, not like my dodgy leather things which I make myself. Yeah, it looks good. He's put a powder, like a slightly sheenier powder coat or something on the face, made it a little bit shinier, and it's covered with a like a wine red Tilex. So I'll grab the amp itself. Now this is a 50 watt, very dirty. It's got output transformer made by someone and a power transformer definitely made by someone, the same person. Doesn't have a company name. Oh, what is it? Maybe that is it. C&T. Don't know if they're still in business. I'd have to look that up. But we got 6 Noble tubes, 2 outputs, which are in this case are EL34s, JJs, and an empty spot for a valve rectifier. So looking on the front, we've got 2 channels. You can link them like the Plexi setup, where you link them either channel together. Typical non-master, and then you got a master on the second channel, and presence, which is master as well. Right switch right on each channel, and chicken head knobs on the back. Going from here, you got Pento, where are we? Power? Yes, that's got the power switch on the back. I think standby on the front. Yeah, standby on the front, power switch on the back, sort of like a Fender. Well, yeah. AC/DC, this was confusing. The customer asked me what this switch does. Flicking between AC and DC. Actually, I just realised you're looking at that upside down. So, it's got AC/DC. We were under the impression that this was some switch between something, AC and DC. All AC/DC means is the fuse, so that's the AC fuse for the mains, and that's DC fuse for the HC. So that was a lot simpler once I actually looked inside the thing. That switch, I believe, switches between valve and solid state rectification. Now in this case, we're on solid state because there's no valve rectified there. I'll ask the customer if he wants one, but considering the styles he plays, I don't think he'd be interested. Pretty heavy stuff, and power and responsiveness is the name of the game there. It's got a triode pentode switch, negative feedback high and low, 2 settings there. Speaker outputs with a impedance selector, effects loop, valve driven effects loop, and it's got a boost for channel B. Channel A in and out of phase, that comes into play when you use the link switch on the front. But yeah, we'll keep going. Just put a block under there. The bells aren't touching, that's alright. So we've got Jamicon radials, which is handy because it's easier to replace. We've got a tag strip construction. People call this point to point, but it's not really. It's tag strip, and everything's really well done. He's used looks like Teflon insulation wherever wires pass over each other. He's used quality components. Looks like the same stuff that I use. He's used some carbon comps in some places, and I'm not a big fan of carbon comps in general, but I do understand that they do affect the tone in some positions, particularly for plate loads in pretty high signal swing areas like the phase inverter. Using them early in the circuit seems to just add noise, in my opinion, but it's a taste thing as well. And I'll probably start World War III by talking about that. But he's got reefer long life caps, which are good quality, and they're rated 105C. From memory, I've got some of them, and I think they're something stupid. They're like 30,000 hour rated or something nuts. So meant for almost military grade stuff. And yeah, the AC/DCs for those about to rock, yeah. He's got some really chunky ass switches, like shit you'd expect to see in a fucking power plant. And everything else is Carling. So yeah, really well built, and this one's just in for service, no particular issues, just want it checked over. Now it's got a name down there, Franco Ragat. I did a quick research, or a quick check on that. It turns out he's Jimmy Barnes' guitarist, session guitarist, or touring guitarist. So this must have been commissioned for someone, for him, and it's made its way onto the second-hand market. So that's where my customer found it, and now it's his. So I'll just give it a check over, and we'll fire it up. I'll take some quick bias measurements just to check that we're hunky-dory in that area, and then we'll just go ahead and give the thing a clean, take some measurements, have a listen, check for microphonics, that kind of thing. It's got these cool sockets which have ventilation slots in them. Now I don't know where they come from. They've got Russian writing on them, but I'd like to get me some of them because they'd be handy for reverb drivers or phase inverter positions where they generate a fair bit of heat. Got JJ's, a Softec, Svetlana, sorry. It's one of those generic Chinese ones. Electro harmonics. Haven't had the same valve twice, manufactured twice yet. What's that one? That's Softec, so that's 5 valves, 5 manufacturers. And another Speddy, so 2 Speddies. And 2 JJs. They don't look like they've gotten too hot. The writing's still nice deep red. The big giveaway with those is when the writing starts to go a pale sort of brown colour. You know they've gotten too hot. So what we'll do, we'll just jimmy these out gently, hold out the bear claws in the process. And pop in our bias probes wherever they are. Now, when you plug these in, these are the ones that break the anode connection. So when you plug them in, you've got the anode supply of the output valves on that red pin there. So you don't want to plug it in without knowing the cap's discharged. What I prefer to do is plug them into the multimeters first. Put it into the 400 milliamp. Oh, we'll go with the 10 amp since I blew a fuse last time. It's accurate enough. So for this one, I grab a little jumper lead, which is behind the camera. Put this in first. Put that into that. Get my third multimeter. It's the fluke show. When will they start sending me free multimeters for all this advertising? That'd be nice. Wrong one. We'll find a convenient ground somewhere. I'll get a longer lead. Just clip onto one of those clips. I'll put the probe in first. So now we're not exposed to the voltage if there is stray voltage on those caps. Set that to DC, very important. That's right where the screen's reflecting, of course. See, if I tilt them up like that, you can't see them. If I tilt them like that, you can't see them. There we go, just got to move them back a bit. And and as soon as we connect this to ground and put this probe in, we'll know if there's any stray voltage. And there's bugger all. Alright, so that's the janky setup. I'll pop the valves back in. A bit dusty. Just make sure you got locating pins connected. These Euro tube sockets, they use the cheap ceramic sockets that don't necessarily locate the valve correctly. We'll have to give it a speaker, just have a listen. Got into 16 ohms in the test cab. We're switched over to 16 ohms, sweet as. Of course, the mains input's on the opposite end. Turn off the mains. One thing we'll do first, I've already done this, I've checked it out when I quoted it, but I'll just show you. Just check the fuse ratings. Now this doesn't say anything on the amp, I don't believe. I'm not sure if he's got a manual or something that he sold the amp with or whatever, but a lot of the sort of smaller makers, they don't give documentation, which is not great, but you could at least put a sticker on the back saying what rating the fuse is. So 1 amp for the high tension. It's in line with Marshall and stuff. Probably not drawing quite that much, being a 50 watt, but it's not like a 10 amp, so that's good. And it's a 1.5 amp, so nothing dramatic there either. They're not blown, so. Alrighty then, let's have a listen. Fire it up. What the fuck was that? Did you guys hear that? Okay, so there's something coming from the speaker. Main speaker. Maybe, did I flick that rectifier switch over? Okay. So I think we've got an intermittent connection somewhere, and somehow something's coming through the speaker when the valves aren't even warmed up yet. So we're drawing 43 watts. That was weird. Let's turn the volume down a bit. Turn the brights off. Turn the link off. Alright, well, that's not good. Something funny going on. Let's figure out what it is. I'll just do that again and see what the current did. It's only drawing 40 something watts. Alright, so one of those valves isn't conducting at all. That's the one on the right. So I think we've got a bad connection somewhere, and it could very well be the probe, because they are getting a bit on. So we'll just power this off. Might be making some new probes on the channel too. Since that was the one not conducting, we'll just see if it conducts now. gets warm, if that weird sound hangs around. Yeah, it's still there to some degree. Thinking we've got a poor connection somewhere. Yeah, nothing wrong, just needs a once over, mate. Same old story. It was behaving when I quoted it. Now it's not. So the heaters are working. Now it's behaving itself. So I think my probes are possibly failing, or it doesn't like something about the probes. Okay. Well, let's have a listen. We'll see what it's doing. Presence knob's a bit scratchy. That could be due to design. It's like a Marshall, some of the Marshalls. That's B channel. So it's got two jacks, one per channel. No switch between the two channels. Yeah, it could be the probe leads making it oscillate. So I'll check that. It could be passing near the too close to the speaker cable too. He's got some power. Sounds a little bit brittle at low volumes. Cop that. So we'll just try the master volume channel. Max it out, bugger it. So that's all the gain it's got. It's alright, it's good. It's like a little bit fuzzy. It is all the way though. Let's set everything at 12 o'clock, see what it sounds like. Everything's pretty healthy there. I think it's an issue with my probes more than anything. I've been meaning to make some new ones for a while now, so I guess I'll be doing that today. What I might do is just give this thing a clean up and just do all the use to it. It sounds like there's no crackling or anything there. I'll just check for microphonics again. Set everything noon. Take off the covers, give them a bit of a wee little tap and wriggle. Just check that the sockets aren't intermittent, because we'll know about it if they are. Bit of a crackle there, but These Chinese ones often go microphonic, but in this case I think they're alright. Yeah, that could be a bright cap thing, but the bright switch was off, but there could be other bright caps in there as well, so. Yeah, a little bit crackly. Nothing too dramatic. Nothing dramatic in the output stage. So what I might do is we'll just give it a bit of a clean, just a general average clean, and then I'll figure out what's going on with those bias sockets, but might just give it a quick brush and an inspection, and we'll put it aside because I've got to make those sockets before I can trust these things. Might do a different video for that. I've still got to sort of figure out how I'm going to do it anyway. So I'll take the valves out in their order. Sevens all around. It's super strange that there's like every brand under the sun in there. Get the vacuum. Let them cool down a bit before I took them out. Still a bit warm. Ow. Yeah, I'll do that, Alan. Feels like one's running hotter than the other. Alrighty then. Just got an ever so slightly damp sponge just to take off the rest of the dust that wouldn't move. It's in pretty good nick, it's been taken care of. It's just the dust works its way in and stays there. Looks like it could have been manufactured. There's been an issue with the powder coating on the end there, so they've touched it up with spray paint. Alright. Steal my multimeter back. Sounds strong. When something sounds that beefy, generally there's nothing wrong with the output stage at least, and couldn't find any crackles or anything weird other than tapping on the valve. So, but I will just check a few things for drift. Check for voltage first. Where's a good ground point? Over there. 0.7. Screen supply. Yep, down to less than a volt. All good. So I'll just check the plate supplies for drift. They're metal film. They're fine. They're all within friggin' 1%, even though they're 5%. Sometimes with the probes you think that the resistor's open, but it's just the tip of the probe hasn't broken through the flux coating yet. Just give them a quick twist. So he's got all these plate supplies on this tag strip down here, which is cool. Everything's sort of well thought out. All the soldering schmick. No dramas. Nothing's loose or coming away. Yeah, half the battle's just doing a visual inspection of this kind of stuff. There shouldn't be any DC on the presence pot looking at the circuit, so I think we can just clean that one up. Yeah, anyway, I might put this one aside for now and move on to the other one, which I've got to get done today. I think that one's going to come good with just a clean. For now I want to do some grunt work. Really should have some lunch or something. I'm starting to shake. Alan, they're not common here. It's one guy, he's a builder, and he worked out of a music shop in Windsor. He had a repair shop as part of that music shop. I'm not sure if it was an independent deal and he was just renting space off him or whatever. I've never personally met him. I did see him in passing once when I was in Windsor, but yeah, he builds good stuff. I've seen a few of his builds come through here. They've never been, you know, a problem with the design or the execution. It's always just been a new set of valves or, you know, just a bit of maintenance. In one case there was a blown speaker, but it's hardly his fault. So I'll clear the bench up again. Get on to something a bit more interesting that we can laugh at. Yeah, you guys wanted to see boutique. There's another pretty decent one here. Which I've got to get to, but I want to do this other one first. Guy's been waiting for ages. At the moment, it's sort of feel like treading water a bit. There's plenty of work, but supply of parts is slow, and I don't know, sometimes it's just at the moment because you haven't had a holiday and we're just in this treadmill of COVID that I feel like you got to work 3 times harder to get half the amount of money. So there's a bit of that, and it's just staying focused is getting difficult. Haven't gone anywhere for the last 6 months or done anything. It's just been come here, work, go home, come here, work, go home. You think I would have got heaps done, and I should have. I've also said yes to a bunch of really super complex jobs, which I probably shouldn't have. But you know me. So, clear the decks, look at that. I can see that my camera's out of alignment. There we go. That's gone too far the other way. So, what's next? Boys and girls. Ah! Peavey! We've got a Peavey Delta Blues. And ubiquitous amp. They're everywhere. They're one of the most popular amps in the world. And this has all the same problems that all the others have. So it came in farty distortion, low output. Had one look in the back, and straight away I saw this. Oh, there we go. So that's JJ's EL34 that has died. So it's lost its vacuum, but you can also see there it was overheating before that. There is a crack in the glass, you can see there. Might be difficult, let me zoom in. So you can see, let's get the light just right. You can see there, that whole section, those 3 pins is cracked off. So that's let the air in. That could have happened from mechanical shock. It also could have happened from thermal expansion from the thing getting too hot. It's hard to tell which happened first. So that discoloration there, I've got a feeling that was possibly a loss of bias supply to this tube. And she's run away, got very hot, and then that very quick thermal expansion has expanded the glass disproportionately and it's cracked. Now the bottom being thicker is going to expand slower than the rest of the bottle, so that's where the cracks happen. I reckon that's what's happened, but you know, it's all just bloody hearsay, isn't it? Point being, the thing's fucked and we're going to fix it. The other valves have a bit of discoloration, but not as dramatic as that one. These, like all amps that use EL84s, this amp flogs them as hard as it can. This one's got some funny shit going on in it too. So yeah, this one a little bit discoloured, but not as much as the other. This one's got white shit on the inside, like a Kate Moss birthday party, and that's possibly material from the cathode coming off. And that one feels super microphonic, like rattly. So she's had a hard life. The preamp valves, they're all intact still. We've got 1 JJ's, 2 JJ's, 1 Ruby. So that's the motley crew that came in it. So let's remove the knobs, the knobs, off the stupid proprietary pots. Now there's an interesting story with these amps. They're actually like the Marshalls from before. It's pretty impressive that they managed to make this happen. So I'm a member of several. Bit of string wrapped around a pot. That's a bit weird. Sorry, I just realised I'm zoomed in. Bit of string wrapped around one of the pot shafts. That's strange. So every 12 months or so, I'm a member of several amp repair forums, and they helped me a lot out when I was starting out, and still do from time to time because there's strange problems. I don't profess to know everything or even much, but there, about every 12 months there's someone that comes online, starts whinging about these amps. Now it's the construction of them that usually gets people in a tiz. Here's how they're made. So there's a lot of issues with them, but here's the profile of the chassis. Cheap folded metal, about 0.8mm mild steel, powder coated. It's got another layer tightly fitted to it of chrome plated steel, very thin, so it wears through. It starts rusting and you lose your lettering, just like on the earlier Fender Hot Rod Blues series. And the main gripe about them is the construction of the circuit boards. So you can't really see at this end, but see how small the powertrain is too. Like you could throw that at a window and it would bounce off it. so there's the construction of the circuit boards. They're in a C shape, so I call it the origami amp. And they're all the circuits are joined together by link wires. Now what happens is, well, A, you can't get in there to repair stuff because it's a little labyrinth of boards, and B, when you take it out to repair stuff, those wires break, and you only realise they're broken when you've put them back in, and then you've got to take the whole lot back out again to replace that wire because you can't get to the solder connections. And because, like, look how wide the boards are. If one of these pins breaks here, sure, you can dodge it up by wiring them together out here, but it doesn't look very pro, and it looks pretty sketchy, and you could still have cracked solder joints on the inside. So what I do by default is I lay the thing out flat, work on the thing flat on the bench, like everything, like bias it, check it, run it, check for noises, test the thing, and then I replace all the wires, because copper work hardens when you bend it. So you bend it once, no worries. Bend it twice, bend it 3 times, and it snaps. It gets harder each time you bend it. It's a metallurgical thing. So if you bend it once, you're fine. So what I do is just by default, I just replace them all. Just make new links and pop in some wire and solder them in, and do all your testing first if you can, or replace 1 or 2 if they're already broken, but just make sure you replace them all before you put the thing back together, and you should be sweet. You might get away with it reusing them if it's never been opened before, but I just do that just to be safe, and it's never failed me so far. So a few other issues with this amp. We'll go on the just practical stuff so far. They use the same shitty IC caps that Fender use, and they use hot melt glue to glue them all together. What does hot melt glue in it? What does hot melt glue do in a valve amp? It melts and then runs out of the amp. So it stops doing what it was put there for, and it finds its way onto all the other parts and runs throughout the amp, and just makes it a general pain to work on, because you've got to heat it up and clean the crap off, and it runs all over bits and pieces. It's not conductive though, so it's doing better than the Rivera I had to do yesterday, but let's not start on that one. So I removed a couple of caps here just to check, visually check inside it and whatever, and he agreed to recap anyway, so I just cut them out and had a look. So there are a few of them floating around here. IC brand, Illinois capacitor, Illinois my ass. So let's, I've just got to remember how to get into this thing. The other problem with them is, I'll show you the circuit diagram. So cost was everything in this. So the target market was the US, and they wanted it built in the US. That was one of the had to meets in the design criteria. Now design is good if you've got constraints. If you don't have constraints, you end up with that, well, you know, anything that Apple made. No, you end up with like the Juicero thing, which you watch AVE. It was a very interesting video about this subscription-based juicer, which was just an absolute dystopian horror show of engineering. That's what happens when you don't have constraints. When you've got constraints, you are forced to make certain decisions, and it makes the design criteria easier. And in this case, it was a bit too far, because it made it very difficult. They had to be under $1,000 US new, and they had to have it built in America. So those two constraints there were extremely limiting. So they had to make a lot of compromises to make that happen. And one of them, in combination with the construction, one of them was, although I think that could have been done cheaper, but whatever, arguments out on that one, I wasn't there. But one of them is the power transformer. So it's only got 2 windings. Now in this you've got low voltage circuitry, you've got relays, you've got heater supplies, you've got plate supplies, you've got all this stuff that in any other amp would take 4 or 5 windings, plus bias supply would be another winding in some, well, a tap in some of them. In this you've literally got 4 wires coming out of the secondary, so you've got 2 windings and that's it. Now I'll show you how they did that. So Delta Blues, very similar to the Classic 30, Classic 50. Here's your 2 windings. You got 2 bridge racks, and you also got some wiring, some supplies pissing off before the bridge rack. So you've got your high voltage, which is a dedicated winding with a fuse. Comes out. You got your plate supply. You've got your standby switch. Is it? No, that's your. No, there's no choke. Where do they go? I forget. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So, oh, is that just... Is that the power switch? I forget. Anyway, those I don't know where those jumpers go. I'll double check it. But anyway, this is where I sound like a dumbass. So, then you've got your screen grid, you've got your plate screen, and then your preamp nodes after that. On your lower voltage winding here, you can see they've got 1N4007s there, they've got 4003s here, so that gives you an indication what kind of voltage they're expecting, somewhat lower. You've got dropper resistors there, so they chose a winding that was suited as a compromise between all the voltages they had to derive from it. And then they've used some dropper resistors to drop the heater voltage down to a suitable voltage to suit all the heaters. And then they've derived minus 36 volts, they've got the bias supply over here, the resistive divider there with the filter cap for the bias there. You've got minus 30 volts there going to something else, you've got a filter cap, filter network, and you've got minus 15 over here. So they've done a lot of tricky things with those voltages to get shit done, and it's quite admirable that they managed to do all that with that transformer, because it's tiny. And the other thing that happens on these is your AC filaments, that's a high voltage, so what they've done is they've calculated all the heater filaments in the whole amp. They've run them all in series. You can see there. So AC fill 2. So that connects down to this one here. And then it runs through this filament, through that filament, through this filament, that filament, and then out that filament, out that lead. So that's all your power amp filters there. You know, if one of them goes down, all of them go down. It's like Christmas lights on your Christmas tree back in the 90s. Now they've got so 9 and 9, yeah, that's connected. Obviously, that's the two halves of the same valve. And well, one of them doesn't have the valve designator on there, but anyway. So then you've got other stuff like that goes to minus 36, and then they've done a lot of bastardry to get the filaments to happen, and it's kind of admirable actually that they made it all happen. So that's how they got away with that transformer. A lot of design trickery, and it's pretty cool. Doesn't make for a reliable amp, but it's still pretty cool. So yeah, that was the limitation. And back to the first story, someone was whinging about these amps on one of those forums, and then the actual designer of the amp piped up in the comments below. And he explained the whole story. It was like 8 paragraphs, and I think the guy that was complaining about it was eating a bit of humble pie after that one. Once the actual designer explained the story, and we all sat around around the campfire listening to his stories. It was really cool. Yeah, no standby on these, Alan. Thanks for that, mate. Get out. Is that a customer? Could be. I have to put you on mute for a minute, champions. And we're back. Set a drop off. Next to the Peavey factory, mate. That's alright. You can get those crazy pots that they like putting in these things. Is Peavey still using IC caps? I believe they are. IC is one of the few companies that still make axial caps, and Peavey is one of the few companies that still use axial caps. And Fender, I don't know why anyone uses axial caps in any new design at the moment anymore. There's no excuse for it. It's so dumb. Radial. It's the way to go, people. Just stop it, please. They're getting so expensive. I don't want to put IC caps in anything. I've heard rumours that the ones they get are super cut rate, so that's why they keep blowing up. And if you buy them from DigiKey or Mouser, they're actually better quality than the ones that they use OEM. But I'm still not trusting them. Not when your reputation depends on how many amps come back to you a year. See, as soon as someone says, I took my amp to him, I had to take it back like 2 months later because it did the same shit. Well, straight away your reputation has just dropped a few points. Here's those valve retainers. So we're doing a full recap to this one. We're replacing the output valves, obviously, because they look like that. And we're going to just check over the thing. I'm going to replace a couple of the parts, lift them off the board so they don't cook their own solder connections. We're going to use the hot air station to remove a lot of the glue schmoo over everything. I'm going to remove these bloody valve retainers because they keep scaring me. Going to check all the solder connections because the biggest thing on these also is the very low quality circuit boards. They get cooked. If they don't get cooked, they just crack the solder joints anyway. I had one in Classic 30 not long ago. Watch this. So this is how it came in. I'll give you the full porno shoot. So I had one look at it and just went, oh god, I don't think this is fixable, mate. And you gotta break it to the customer. We'll go on the deck because it seems to like focusing on the bench behind it. There we go. So this one is an old Classic 30 board. That was the first thing I saw, and that was like, uh-oh, what's wrong here? That cap's out of the way, but I did that, don't worry about that. So all the valves, that's the EL84 sockets. They're absolutely cooked. That's the preamp sockets, they're not too bad, but whatever. And then you look at the other side. This was someone's fix. And it didn't work, of course. Absolute horror show. So all the traces are gone, dead, ripped off the board, cooked, cracked. Even the preamp valves, like that's a reflowed. It's got a hole next to it. It's not reflowed, is it? Yeah, just absolute, like that was how he put the socket out. Like he finished that repair and goes, yeah, that's fine. So this thing's just, it's buggered. There's holes drilled in it where it just cooked itself. He's run wires through his heat shrink. There's all sorts of shit going on. You just got wires flopping around. Like that could cause oscillation. You don't know what rating that jacket is. You've got bare wires right next to other connectors. That's the heater line there, I believe. Just absolute horror show. So I said to this guy, look, I can't really do anything. He had two of them. One wasn't in as bad shape as this. So I said, look, I'll work on this one. I'll restore this one for you. But you give me this one and you can have that one for free, basically. Because I wanted to build something. and I'll show you what I came up with. Now, I didn't want to do a full gut and rebuild because this chassis is a pain in the ass to gut, even to build your own build in. It's still kind of useless. So what I did was use it as an exercise because I was learning how to make circuit boards. So I made my own replacement classic 30 board, and that's it there. This is Rev 1. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have used a ground plane, but this was just sort of more of an exercise to practice with KiCad for making my own circuit boards for when I do make my own amps. It's improved the screen grid resistors. There's now 1 per valve, which is another stupid thing. They've got 2 valves that have a screen grid, the other 2 don't for some reason. You've got adjustable bias. There's going to be a trim pot there that's accessible from the end of the amp chassis, so you don't have to remove it to adjust the bias. All you need is some Novel bias probes and you'll be able to bias the amp without dismantling it, so that'll be cool. A few changes to the screen, the grid stoppers, I believe. Through plated holes, 2 ounce copper, so thick copper on both sides. 2 mil thick board, so thicker than your average board. High thermal stability board as well. It's a higher rating than your average FR4. And that's my little tutor. So hoping to, well, at least test this one in that amp. I've got a few issues with it, like the clearances and stuff that I was still learning with how to do net clearances and stuff in KiCad, so I'm a bit more across that now, so I think I could probably refine this somewhat before I even implement it. But this was the first board that I designed from scratch and got ordered through I think it was PCB way, and it was more of an exercise in making a board, not getting any errors, not getting any inquiries from the board manufacturer, them making it without asking any questions because I haven't done anything dumb, sending me the board and checking that everything looks as I expected. So it'll probably work fine. The clearances in this are the same as the existing board, if not probably a bit wider. Ground plane will introduce a degree of capacitance to some of the lines, but it's probably not the end of the world. It'll probably prevent oscillation if anything. And there are larger clearances that I manually introduced to the high voltage supply lines. You can see there's a little bit more clearance around there, probably not enough, but it's not a massive voltage on these plates either. I think it was 330 or something from memory, so it's probably work fine. I might just chuck this in and just see how it goes, and for the next revision I've got a zombie amp that a Frankenstein amp that I can test it on. So the trickiest part was getting these sockets. So I wanted to put some nice Beltons on there or something, and that would mean that you'd have to drill out the valve socket holes in the chassis. Now that's not simple either, because see here, it's got little ears turned up that hold onto the valve retainers. So if you wanted to drill that out, you'd have to cut them off, and then you wouldn't have valve retainers, and then it's doable, but I'm trying to make this board so there's minimal labour and you can get one of these things up and running again when pretty much no one else can, and that's the plan with these boards anyway. So going from that to that. But anyway, it's one of my little rainy day projects, and we're in a bit of a drought at the moment, so another one I did, which is a more common problem, was the classic, what am I trying to say? The Fender Blues Junior boards. So they have a similar problem. They cook themselves. There's already been one replaced in this one. So that top tan one's the stock Fender one. Someone's already replaced one of the valves. That's one of the outputs as well. L84. Is it? No, it's not. It's the other way around. Sorry. So yeah, so that's one of the preamp valve sockets that's been replaced. But yeah, they've got super thin traces. Well, when I say thin film, the traces are pretty wide actually. But there's a few other manufacturers that make these as well. The postage is just a killer for us, which is why I decided to make my own, also as an exercise on how to make them. So there. you see the comparison between the two boards. They've got just round pads. I've made them oval shaped, and I put isolation slots between them to increase the I forget what you call it, the isolation, the pad clearance, the clearances. There is a word for it, but I've forgotten. Again, this is 2mm thick fiberglass, high temperature, 3-plated holes, silk screen there to show you which valves which. I've rerouted the heaters. So here you can see on this board the heaters run next to each other. On mine they run above and below each other. So they're like sandwiched on either side of the board. I've also added bias test points, which you can see over here. No adjustable bias on this one, but just well, I might do in a future one, but this one was just to replace cooked boards basically, and make the amp usable again, because it sucks when you got an amp that's otherwise fine and it's just like one component like this has let it down, and if you replace that one component, but it's always the custom built part, the fabricated for that model part that fails, and then you basically the amp has to get thrown in the bin or gutted and rebuilt. So just having one board like this for like, I'm selling for like 25 bucks Australian, which is like $3 US, yeah. And it restores the amp back to a reliable state. I've installed 3 or 4 of these now and they've all been really good, no problems. Might start a store one day, but like I say, these guys in the UK and the US are already selling a similar product, and they're just as good as these, if not, probably could be better. Anyway, enough tangents, you fuckers. You're getting me off track. Yeah, right, it's your fault. So we'll remove the rest of the sockets, the sockets, as they say in France. Alright, so remove those ones. Now we've got a couple of screws on the other side. Number 1 Phillips. Yeah, hand wiring them. I've seen other guys do that, and Hoffman makes a turret, or yeah, I think it's turret board for them. It's just too labour intensive. I wanted it so you can just get the board, socket's already installed, just unscrew it, screw that one in, resolder the ribbon connectors, and away you go. And built-in advantage, little bonus of having the bias test points there as well. Right, now the whole works should come out. It's a bit tricky, you've got to sort of fold it at the same time. Just got a cable or two holding us back there. If you can't see what's going on, just got to get that speaker and foot switch jack board out of the way, because that holds the whole works open, and there's a nice little spider's nest in there as well. The spider's been molting. So, got that out, and just work the sockets out gently, and the whole works comes out. And we can work on it on the bench and piss off the chassis until we give it a clean. So we'll fuck that off. And we origami it. We'll probably work on it like that, as long as you can access the board, the solder connections, sorry. It's got a series of brackets there. So yeah, we could leave them on. do have to get to some parts in that area though. We'll get rid of the interconnect there. Let's check the condition of the jumper wires. We might leave those brackets on so we don't have to worry about these ones across here. That's interesting. Oh no, that's just the Vactrol. So there's a Vactrol in this one that isn't there on the Classic 30, I believe. That's it, that black thing there. It's an opto coupler essentially. And on that side I saw what I thought was cut off leads from removed components, but that's just the other side of the Vactrol because it's soldered to the opposite side of the board. But yeah, let's have a look at the condition of the thing. See what kind of condition its condition is in. So there's the integrated input cap there between the grid and the plate. It's measured around 10 puff. I just put a 10 puff cap in my version to replace this silly janky setup. So having a look, V1 there, not too bad, starting to crack in places. V2, about the same. It's got the folded over ones to sort of secure it, 3 out of 9. V3 is starting to crack a little bit there. Looks almost like someone's touched these up. It's pretty rare that you get in one of these amps and there's not pretty obvious signs of someone being in before though, so it might have been someone that really knew what they were doing. But yeah, every second pin's got a little ring around it indicating that it's either starting to crack or it's already pretty solid, pretty well cracked. So all of them need reflowing. It looks like the traces aren't in bad nick though. There's a little bit of discoloration around the EL84 sockets, but not by any means the worst I've seen. There's no arc damage anywhere. So essentially what we'll be doing is a recap, because there's literally splooge coming out the ends of the caps. Yeah, splooge is a technical term. See a bit of discoloration around the power resistors on the other side there. I believe that's the heater droppers that are dissipating a fair whack of current. Of power, I mean. You know what I mean. Now, some sketchy looking solder joints on the pots. But yeah, overall, it's a good contender for repair because it's not too bad. So let's look at the other side. You got the caps I've already removed there because I was having a look inside, and all that glue, it's got to be removed, and the stupid ass proprietary pots that cost the earth and you can't find anywhere. And switchcraft sockets, which are pretty well standard-ish. You got Ruby sockets there, valve sockets I mean. I don't know who actually makes them, if Ruby make them themselves. As far as I knew, Ruby were just a rebadger, so must be made by someone else. Probably eBay, the same supplier that I got those other ones from eBay from. There's no real legitimate sellers that sell that small diameter one, ceramics, but they're okay. They do the job as long as you're not reusing them 50 times a day. So let's get to work, eh? Enough bullshitting. Fire up the hot air station. We'll see if we can soften that glue up a bit. In the meantime, the rest of these caps can come out. I'm getting really hungry now. Do you guys want to watch me eat? So I'm going to get rid of the 3 ohms. Actually, before I do that, I'll check I've got some. I was sure I bought some of them. Don't tell me I don't have any. Come on, you bastard. Four ohm. I'm gonna have to order some resistors. I think I used 4 ohm last time and it was fine. You don't want to run your heaters under though. It's not a good idea. Cap's stuck pretty good. Hey, that was a lot easier. Oh, now it's stuck to me. Yeah, anyway, Fosso. Good thing I'm not a surgeon, eh? Moving yet? Starting to. You know what might be a better idea? Heat the bottom of the board. Probably won't have as much crap sticking to me then. It's only 200 degrees Celsius, so below the melting point of solder. Yeah, that works heaps better. Yeah, because it melts it where the actual cap is touching the board. So the big chunk of glue comes off with the cap. You won't have to clean it off after. Might cheat a bit on this one. I can't cut leads off because they're embedded in a big glob of glue. So we'll just desolder this one and heat the board again. Yeah, you can cut the wrapper too. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. This one, that's the actual legs are embedded in the thing though. I wanted to cut them off, but there we go. Sweet as, bro. So that took the big blob off with it. So there's still some on the board, but much less than where I did it the retarded way. You probably can't say that anymore, eh? I'll get my chisel. don't want to go slipping with these things, just slowly just work it off. This stuff's actually when it's cold, it's surprisingly brittle. Actually comes off almost like, you know, chunks of like a plastic. Now it's sort of got a chewing gum consistency. Might just get a wood block. Pop it underneath there so we can put a bit of downforce on it without damaging anything. Don't want to push too hard though, just might be a matter if we get more of a blunt chisel. Like a small tool. Just give it a bit of heat again. Yeah, it gets pretty messy. Speak for yourself, John. Ah, this is not fun. It's like molasses. Well, I might go back to heating the other side of the board and see if I can get it off in bigger chunks. Coming off, but yeah, it's fiddly. This is the bit that makes for a boring video. So what I might do is cut it off here, the video I mean, not the board. And I'll clean all the glue off, have some lunch, and if I'm feeling up to it I might come back and do a live stream of the rest of it. Otherwise you can watch the edited video, which will include some of this footage and a little bit more of a concise, clearer explanation of what I'm doing. And that way John's happy because he doesn't have to look at my face. So everyone say, piss off, John. It's like alien snot, eh? Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this efficiently and talk while I'm doing it. So I'll be off. Happy Friday, champions. Have a good weekend. And I've got a few other videos in the pipeline at the moment, which I've just got to edit. So I will do that and keep an eye out. Share it around if you like it, if you like my banter. If not, there's a little red X in the corner and you press that one and you don't have to worry about it. So have a bloody good day, champions. And to the Aussies in lockdown still, not long now. Hopefully things start to stabilise soon, and you'll probably be too busy to watch my videos, so bugger. Have a good one.